Or is it doing it? You pushed it?
And we are live. Yes, I pushed it.
Oh, okay.
We're live and I pushed it. So, Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Suzanne and Joey podcast. I am your co-host and producer, Joey McKinnich, and this is your hostess with the mostest. Are you on this side on your screen?
No, I'm on the side.
Oh, I got to
Yeah, go to the other one. Like do this. No, do that. Yeah.
This is your hostess
Hi.
with the mostest.
Suzanne.
Suzanne
Yeah.
what?
Luke.
Like Luke Skywalker.
Like Luke Skywalker and in the Bible.
Yeah, we are on and live and waiting for our guest to appear, and he's popping in right now.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about him then?
This is a guy that I started following about, about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And he cracked me up at first. So first of all, he just made me laugh, and I was like, oh, this guy's hilarious. And then he started talking about stuff that really made sense to me and stuff that was way over my head. And I was like, okay, let's dig a little deeper. So I signed up for his free course and started going through that, delved in it a little bit, and then I kind of forgot about it. And then when you and I met, I showed you a couple of his videos because I would still go back and watch some of his videos every once in a while. Right. And you were like, oh, I like this. This is really cool.
Yeah, he does. He kind of grabs you. And
And so you went and signed up for the course as well. And you're what episode are you into in the course now?
I'm in 8.
8. Okay.
Yeah.
Season 8 of the Brandon Joe Williams show.
Episode 8. Yeah. Episode 8.
We're going to bring him on and talk to him because he's in the waiting room now. And we appreciate him coming on and spending his time with us on this special edition of the Suzanne and Joey podcast on Friday afternoon. We hope you guys are all jumping on to join us. And I'm going to make sure that it is live on Facebook. And Suzanne, why don't you go ahead and bring him in?
Yeah. Okay. So also, Brandon Joe Williams is also an author. He has written, excuse me, just one second. I've got my dog down here and I'm trying to move him. Okay. Sorry. And he is the author of 2 books, Don't Be a Slave and Love is a Battery. So he has a very diverse background. And I also want to mention that just before he even started studying law, he studied etymology, which is the study of words and where they came from, what they're derived from. And that's like a hobby, like something that truly interests him. So as I've said before in the promo, like what better person to learn law from than somebody who has fun studying language and where it came from and diving deep.
He has fun, all right. That's for sure.
He does. Absolutely. That's what everyone who signs up for his course, when I read all the comments, a lot of them were like, thank you for making this fun. Thank you for making this simple so I could understand it. So
Brandon, she's just going to leave you in the waiting room the whole time.
No, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that because I know once it gets going, I don't know what's going to happen. I have to hold my control for a little longer. No.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Without further ado, you want to hear from the man himself? All right. Yay.
Hello. Hello, beautiful people. Hello. How are you doing?
How you doing, man?
Hello, guys.
How you doing?
We've
been excited about this all week long. Actually, since we talked about it, we've been excited about it. But we have a lot of friends that we've been telling about you and about what you do. And a lot of them are intrigued. And they're all on here right now, all 5 of them. So, we
big audience today. Okay, I'm getting a little nervous, getting a little anxious.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Anything new you want to try? Try here. No.
There we go.
Yeah, except for the naked running around, the pickle.
That's
There's
only on the weekends. It's not
it's a safe place for it. So we really appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us.
Yeah,
we know you're busy. Your following is like doubling overnight. Every time we look at it, it's more and more and more. People are really getting the word out.
Yeah, I got a lot of sharing, a lot of good stuff. I'm very excited about everything and some
You're about to go to Austin,
very big shows. Yeah, some very big shows are dropping soon.
You mean bigger than this one?
Slightly.
A little bit.
Slightly, yeah. So, it's going to be, between now and May or June, things are about ready to get, a whole lot different. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm very excited. I think, at the end of the day, what am I trying to do? I'm just trying to get everyone to, have this information, and what they do with it is up to them. But I feel like my mission is just to make sure everybody has it.
Right.
Not what they do with it, just the fact that it is in their grasp, in their possession, and they realize that it is in their possession. From there, whatever people do with it is fine. I don't, whatever. But I feel like that's sort of like my job here. You know what I mean?
Well, you're doing a hell of a job at it. Let's say that very much. The fact that you put out so much value for free is impressive, and frankly, it tells a lot about your character as a person.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you very much.
So with that being said, if there's people on here who are not super familiar with what you do, would you mind sharing just a little bit of kind of what it is that we're talking about right now? Like what your course is about, what your message is?
Yeah, I'm a human pickle, and
you are.
I help people. I help people. It's funny because I gave this description to the guys over at the Confluence event, which is my first in-person speaking gig that I'm going to pretty soon. And I was just joking, and I sent this, and they actually put it on the website. I'm a human pickle. I'm a human pickle that helps people move out of the country on paper without actually physically moving out of the country. That's the exact.
Oh, that's awesome.
I thought that was hilarious. So that's
yeah.
That is. Yeah, and you got your self-portrait right next to you on the wall.
Yeah, this is my self-portrait right here. This is me looking prime rib. Okay.
You shouldn't put nudes out like that of you.
There we go.
Right.
There we go. There we go. Pickle out fake, but then like just a little hole in the bottom, like a little glory hole.
Absolutely.
I'm a walking bathroom stall at that point. You know what I mean? A seedy gay bar. You know what I mean? It's like perfect. You know what I mean? Perfect.
And the glory hole.
Perfect glory hole. Gloryhole.com. You know what I mean? Portablegloryhole.com is the next URL I'm gonna acquire.
Well, that should be the next one after your main one, which is onestupidfuck.com for those of you that don't know, right?
Well, I also have myfaceasachair.com. I don't know if you guys are aware.
That's right. That's right. I heard you mention that in some of the podcasts. And I was like, did he really say that?
That's just for the ladies though. You know what I mean? Like a girl wants my phone number, like, you're getting the URL. You know what I'm saying?
That's even better.
It's all fun and games. Yeah, it's all fun and games. But yeah.
Well, that's so we're kind of new to the whole arena. I've been dipping in and out for a while and discovering some of the stuff that you do, and really intrigued by it, because who doesn't want more freedom in their life, right? Mm-hmm. Who doesn't want to be out of everybody feels like a slave these days, and what most people don't realize is they really are slaves. They're a slave to the system, and being able to find a way to legally and ethically pull yourself out of that system and live a better life and live as a free person makes a lot of sense to a lot of people, especially now with everything going on.
Yeah.
So
have you noticed like a big uptick from, especially after 2020? You just celebrated your 2-year anniversary, didn't you?
Yeah, so March 14th of 2022 was the original launch of the original text-only website that had no branding, no pickles, and no free course. It was just the text. It was just the State National Theory page, and it was much smaller and much less filled out than it is today. That was the original site at that point in time. So fast forward 2 years, we've got, the Nation, the Amnesty Coalition, we've got merch, we've got flags, we've got litigation, we've got a law firm, we've got State National Theory page, we've got branding, we've got logos, we've got a free course, we've got, just tons and tons and tons of stuff. I didn't have a TikTok account. I didn't have a X account. Didn't even have MailChimp. I don't think hardly set up at all. I think I did at that point, but it wasn't really hardly being used. We've had probably 70 or 80,000 people sign up for the course. And then on the current email list, because I used to really aggressively clean the list just for fun. I used to kick people off, and it was kind of a blast that I had. And it was just kind of this whole mini month time period. I don't really do that so much anymore. And as of right now, I think I have to pull it up, but I think we're around 36,000 emails on the list, something like that.
Wow.
And I like that because it's like, no matter what happens on any of my platforms, I back up that email list. So it's one of those things where, the email list is mine. I paid to build it, and it's a pain in the ass to build it.
Yep.
But when you post something on a social media site, what happens is you
You kinda have no
35,882. Yeah. So only a
Wow.
small percentage of people actually see it. Whereas on an email, everyone's getting it. And I'd say on my email list, I have a pretty high open rate. I'd say like 50 to 55% open rate is probably my average.
Wow.
So out of 38,000 people, 15 plus 4, 19,000 people open the email, 19 to 22,000, something like that. You would need, I mean, even if you had millions and millions and millions of followers on a social platform, you wouldn't get that kind of open rate
Yeah, no kidding.
unless
Not
you
even
paid.
close.
In a lot of the platforms nowadays, if you want your whole audience to see whatever your message is, you have to boost it. You have to pay to have it boosted, which, when my audiences get that big on social media, I don't mind paying to boost. I'm spending about $12,000 a month on paid advertising just to give this information away for free.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
12 grand to give it away.
Is
12
that
grand. Yep.
is that on the social media platforms?
Yeah,
Or
I
is
was
that including
doing
your-
I was doing a whole bunch of different platforms, but now I just do Facebook and Instagram. And the reason why is because by far the best return I have ever gotten is on those platforms, and I personally enjoy those platforms the most. Instagram, not so much. Facebook, even though I know a lot of people don't like it anymore, vast percentage of people tell me they don't like the platform. I still find it to be my favorite platform, and the reason why is because it's not video and photo centric. It's a good
Right.
mixture of text, photo, and video. I like Facebook. It has some quirkiness. It does have some goofiness. It's still my favorite platform. And so, there it is. X is a
Me
great
too.
platform. Yeah, X is a great platform. I'm new to it. I
Mhm.
haven't spent a lot of time there. I do enjoy the platform a lot. I do enjoy the idea of the platform, but I just think that Facebook is just I think Mark Zuckerberg gets a lot of heat. I don't really know why. I think it's a good platform, and I think the guys, the team, and the guys just trying to do the best they can, being in between such a freaking mess with the political pressure and the government and the people and the craziness and the vaccines, and it just goes on and on and on. It's just all just so crazy. I can't imagine what it must be
Yeah.
like to be in the middle of all that and not really kind of know what was going on. I think if anything, Mark Zuckerberg being so young and being so wealthy, I think he's doing a great job. So I don't know. I don't
He
know.
gets paid well to deal with it. So,
I don't know what all the beef is. I don't know what all the beef is. But whatever. People want something to beef about. So there's beef. I don't know. Whatever.
you can always find beef if you're looking for it, can't you?
Yeah. So for me, I just don't care. TikTok, I really dislike thoroughly.
Why is that?
Instagram, it's just
Because it's just OnlyFans girls trying to get you to come to their page.
no. It's just like no one. There's not even. I don't think I've hardly ever seen anyone spell with even remotely good grammar. The messages that I get, it's like, bro, I'm not even gonna try to figure out what you just sent me. Like it's like the place that everyone goes.
Mhm.
That it's like the illiteracy platform, essentially. TikTok. It's literally like if you are illiterate, this is the platform for you. It's perfect. And I just don't particularly like it that much. I mean, I'm there and I created an account and I hardly ever go on there. And it's the one account that I don't respond to anybody on anything on purpose.
Yeah, I didn't know how to get a hold of you for this even. I was just going through and I was on your David Kaufman podcast or the interview with David Kaufman, I should say. And I was going through and reading all the comments, and there's a ton of comments down there, and it would appear as I was looking that you actually look at those comments. Do you really look at them? Because you're responding to several of them, you're hearting a lot of them, and that's actually where you responded to me.
Yeah, I look at all the comments on every platform everywhere. I see everything. So
wow, how long does that take you?
Suzanne can't do that. It'll drive her nuts if she does it.
I spend about 2 or 3 hours a day. 2 or 3 hours a day, just on comments and emails and messages. I have a bunch of copy and paste stuff on my little clipboard, and I just copy paste pretty much the whole time. The amount of actual responses that I will actually send that have anything to do with anything is like 1 or 2 a day, maybe. It's pretty much all just copy paste.
Wow.
And is this a system that you've developed as you've gotten more people, or is this like, no, I was like this from the beginning?
No, it's been pretty much this way since the beginning. As it's gotten bigger, obviously, it's going to be more and more difficult, and I have to scale that up. Eventually, it's going to be autoresponders, and it's going to have all of the usual stuff that I normally copy and paste. And then if there's anything outside of that, then I'll actually answer it. But that's going to be 99% of everything that I get sent.
And are you a one-man show?
Now I am. I wasn't up until about 2 months ago, something like that. I had a publicist.
Okay.
And that relationship ended. So, and ironically enough, as soon as that relationship ended, I started getting on a lot of really big shows, and I started booking more shows than I ever had before. But that particular publicist was also responsible for the entire previous year's shows. So it's kind of like, without the publicist, I wouldn't have 80 shows. But now that I have 80 shows, then the publicist and I break up, and then now it's 20x what it was when I had the publicist. So it's sort of like they got me off
their
the
purpose,
ground.
and
They got me off the ground, and then now that I'm flying, it seems like the correct thing to do is just to fly alone, because it seems to be better. So,
well, let's talk a little bit about where you found this information, and who you got your information from in the beginning, and what took you down this path and down this rabbit hole to where you became such a student of it and wanted to share it with so many people.
Yeah, I was getting attacked essentially by the Employment Development Department, and they kind of trespassed on one of my properties, one of my job sites, and they tried to send me a bill for like $60,000 or $65,000, and that just wasn't going to happen. So I talked to a bunch of CPAs and attorneys and all this stuff, and they were all like, "Oh, you should just make a payment plan, blah blah blah." And I'm just like, "You got to be kidding me! Make a payment plan? That's insane, right?" So that I had a client of mine named Nancy Kramer, and she was trying to tell me about all of this stuff for 2 years, and I kept telling her no, and she's crazy and all this. And then that was kind of the impetus that caused me to give her a call. And she was running the California Assembly at that time. She is not any longer, but she was at that time. And that's kind of how this whole thing got started, essentially. And once I had already handled and addressed the EDD situation and gotten that all cleaned up, that's kind of when I decided to continue to do my research, because it had opened so many doors, and it had answered so many questions, but I had more unanswered questions at that point than I had answered questions, because in the effort to answer those questions, I had been presented with a million other ones. So that was the point when I decided I was going to, and I had already owned onestupidfuck.com for like a whole year or year and a half previous to that, because I've made all my money in paid advertising and online marketing and digital marketing for many years. I took it very seriously. I read hundreds and hundreds of books, did, thousands and thousands of tests, and just did a lot of work in that area to try to become very proficient at that. Paid advertising, which is a lot of the subject of my first book, Don't Be a Slave. A lot of that has to do with setting up paid advertising systems and that kind of thing. But I wanted to do a self-deprecating brand for a long time. I wanted to do a self-deprecating brand for like a year and a half, and I had a very, very small amount of book-related fans. Very small, very, very small, like 50 people or 80 people or something like that. And I told those fans, my book fans, I said, I really want to do a self-deprecating humor brand. And they were like, "Oh, you won't do it," and blah, blah, blah. And like even old friends of mine that I've known for years, "Do it, or you won't do it," or whatever. And I really wanted to do it. I really, really wanted to do it. It was something I really, really wanted to do. And when I found all this information is when I kind of put that to the test. But at the time when this all first started, I only had the URL.
Right.
At the top of the page, it just said Brandon Joe Williams. There was no pickle. There was no branding. There was no anything. Right. So then we go forward, and it's the same. There was no branding, nothing, all the way up until the free course. And then by about 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks into the free course, everyone is hooting and hollering about pickle and how funny it is, and how my comments during the course about how you should, if you don't understand this, you should go down to the farmer's market and get yourself a nice grated cucumber and jam that fucking thing straight up your ass. I don't care. Don't call me. And that was like the biggest, hottest thing. Everyone thought that was the greatest thing ever. So that's when the pickle was born. And that's when I went to 99 Designs, and I put up a gold level challenge.
Yeah.
And I ended up awarding 2 different people for 3 different logos. And one artist made one logo that I really liked, and then one artist made 2 other logos that I really liked, and I awarded all 3 of them. And those have been the 3 major. And then we just made a flag for the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition. I just finished that project a few days ago. That was actually designed by the same artist who made the other 2 logos. The one of the pickle on the beach with the girl behind him, and then the other one with the pickle on the hammock. Those 2 were made by the same artist.
So does the flag have a pickle on it too?
The flag? No, the flag is. I'll show you guys what the flag looks like.
Are we going to get a
sneak
once in
preview
a
here?
lifetime sneak preview?
Well, it's released now. You know,
Okay.
it was kind of going back and forth for a while, but let's see. Share tab audio. Nope. So here is the flag.
Oh, I think we have to share that. Yeah, here we go. Put it on there. Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
Are those all pickles?
It's all
They're
pickles.
all pickles.
That's
Little
awesome.
pickles running
The
around.
DJ, the hot dog stand,
I like the bikini one.
the bikini pickle. That's cool.
Yeah, on rollerblades.
Yeah, so this took a couple weeks to get this all designed and get this all completed. We just finished this project a few days ago. I'm pretty happy. We'll probably have other flags and stuff. We'll probably make something a little bit more simple. We'll do a bunch. I'll do a bunch of different things over the time that we move forward. But this is the first version of our first official flag for the nation.
That's
So
fun. That's
You
so
got
much
a
fun.
lot of momentum moving right now, man. You're like, you were talking to I hope I don't mispronounce her name, Adrienne Rose.
oh yeah, that was fun. We had a blast.
Yeah,
I was hitting on her the
yeah,
whole time.
yeah. A lot of nipple talk there.
Yeah, that was fun. That was fun. I had a fun with her. She's fun.
But you were telling her about you're going to Austin, and I think you're going to meet Dr. Kaufman in Bandera. Is that what you said?
Yeah, he's gonna be there. He's gonna
That's
be
cool.
speaking on law as well. So we're both gonna be speaking on law.
Yeah, he knows his stuff. He was in
Yeah.
that podcast. That was, yeah, you could tell that.
That was a good
taking
one. Yeah.
Yeah, he's taking the process pretty far. So
Oh yeah.
yeah,
He's delving in. We're starting to. I ordered me an endorsement stamp the other day, so we're gonna try it out and see what happens.
Beautiful.
And we have a buddy of ours who just signed up for it, and he couldn't wait. So he's been on several of your podcasts too. I was like, no, it's one a day. Trust me, it's just one a day. And that's once he gets like deeper into it, you're gonna, because some of them I've had to listen to a couple of times. And he was like, oh, I need more. I want more. And so he's on, he's like already found you on several podcasts. I'm like, okay, go check him out on this one. This one's pretty good, you know, and I mean, they're all good, but it was, yeah, people are pretty excited about it, the information that you've got going. I can see the momentum and the wheel turning like big time.
Yeah, we're having a lot of fun, and yeah, it's everything's moving along. Like I said, we've got a lot of really, really crazy, intense stuff going on right now. A lot of really, really huge shows. I'll be doing Kyle Kingsbury. I'll be doing Alex Zek. I just did one with Luke Story. That one is a digital, like online one that'll be released in a few weeks. But then I'm also doing an in-person with Luke Story. There's 2 in-person speaking events I'm going to be doing. One is still being set up. And then the other one is obviously Bandera with the Confluence event. So I'll be in Austin, Texas for 16 days. And I'm just basically, I have maybe 4 or 5 or maybe 6 days filled with activities and shows and in-person shows and stuff. But I intend on getting out there and just trying to fill up the remaining 9 days or whatever it is that don't have anything in them while I'm out there, just whatever I can. And if not, then I'll just roam around downtown and get cocktails, and God knows what's going to happen. Get into some
There's
trouble.
plenty to do in Austin.
Yeah.
Believe me.
Yeah, right.
You can get in trouble real easy there for sure.
So I don't know. We'll probably just do a combination of that, and then obviously if there's any additional shows or any additional things that I can get my hands into, then there it is. And then I leave there on April 4th, and I head to Bandera, Texas, and then we have the 3-day Confluence event, and then I come home.
That's Suzanne's stomping ground. She went to college at College Station or at
No,
Austin,
UT. No,
UT.
not College Station. Yeah, at UT.
Should have said College Station.
Yeah.
And then she ran the Bandera.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Bandera has a
Half
race
marathon, is that
there.
what you did? Yeah.
No, it's a 100K.
100K.
100K,
Okay.
yeah, 100 kilometers, and so that's So
Half
when you
marathon, 100K, it's the same to me. I'm not running either one of them.
1K,
It's a cool
1,000,
area.
whatever, you know what I mean?
Exactly. 5 miles, 500 miles. I don't care.
0.05 miles, whatever. You know?
Exactly. I'm not a runner. When we met, the first thing because she told me she was an ultra marathoner, and I was like, yeah, I don't really run. And she's like, oh, that's okay. I don't want to run her. And I'm like, oh, thank God.
I enjoy the couch, honestly. You know?
I'll drive beside you in my truck.
I like comfortable chairs. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Very much so. That's
You ever
nice.
see? It's like, honey, you ever seen those couches that people put little engines on with little tires on there, and they ride around? They got domestic cans of beer when they're driving around on their couch.
That's what I should do for the Daytona, the Daytona 100 this year. I should give you support by one of those driving.
As you're in the recliner.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
We'll get a lot of. You'll be more popular than anyone who's running it.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Get yourself a lazy boy.
Right.
Put a little weed whacker engine or something in there, like the
big
like
block Chevy.
Do like the crackheads that put those really loud little weed whacker engines on a bicycle. It's the same thing, but you put that on the lazy boy when you have a couple of tires. You know what I mean? Yeah,
that would be awesome. That'd be so much fun.
So
we're doing it. That's it. Done deal.
Yeah, right. I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm gonna start building it in the garage.
There you go. Now we're talking.
For sure.
Get your crack pipe. I heard it helps. You know what I
mean? Yo, man, you want to hit?
Yeah, it's like that. It's like ridiculous. I used to live in an area down here in California where a lot of guys with DUIs and stuff like that, they take these old weed whackers or whatever, and they stick the engine in the bicycle, and they somehow link the engine up to the chain mechanism, and it's like they come barreling down Foothill Boulevard at 26 miles an hour, but that thing's screaming as though it's the last engine on earth. You know what I mean? And you can tell they're just coked out of their mind, and they're just coming, barreling down, this thing at 9 billion decibels. You can barely even hear yourself think. And yeah,
2 cycle smoke rolling out.
We used to have a lot of jokes about this. It's actually an area called Sunland Tahunga, and I lived there for many years, and it's just known for stuff like that. It's a very white meth neighborhood, and it's just a lot of fun. So
yeah,
as opposed to the ethnic meth neighborhoods that they don't do meth, they do different drugs.
Every skin tone has its own drug of preference. Okay,
yeah, they have
with my skin tone, the drug of preference is definitely crystal meth, and definitely a very low regard to your own teeth. They're
exactly. Yeah,
so that's no kidding.
Yeah,
we have that in the upper part of the counties here. Usually get pretty rough.
That's
There's
my
peak.
peak.
Texas. Yeah, you go into the
Indiana.
Walmart sometimes.
I'm from Indiana, so that's my peak. You know what I mean? Those are my people.
Yeah, from the dental industry. That's right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. So you used to manage several dental facilities, right? Like you in New York? Yeah. Wasn't it in New York?
Yeah. So I used to stop girls on the street in New York. Probably like probably like 20 to 60 women a day. A lot of times the groups of women was my favorite. Groups of women that looked like they were from another country. That was perfect. Like 2 or 4 girls. They look like they're from Colombia. Like, oh my God, I can't wait to talk to them. Stop. You have to stop right now. And I would just hit on them and kiss their hands and, dance around with them in the street and all sorts of good stuff. Well, one day there was this beautiful Asian girl, and I stopped her, and it turns out she's a local dentist, and she had done some of the same training that I had, and she was trying to build up her dental office and all this kind of good stuff. And we ended up working together and then dating, and that's kind of how I got into dentistry and dental offices. We ended up building her office up real big and building out a whole space and doing this whole big, huge thing. And then when we broke up, I came back to LA, and then that's when I met this other doctor who I was working for about 8 years, Dr. Paul O'Malley, and working for him as the dental office manager. And then that just ended actually very recently. That ended in September of last year of 2023. So.
And you've been doing this full time since then?
Been doing this full time since then. Litigation, all the good stuff. Working from home. Car gets many less miles.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just kind of a.
What about the bike? How's the bike?
Yeah, I was about to say you're doing everything.
I love
on the
your bike,
right?
by the way.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all. I try to ride the bike as much as I can, especially when it gets a little warmer out. I probably won't even use the car hardly at all. I just drive the car because she gets pissy if I don't. So it's just kind of.
You gotta blow her out, blow the pipes out every once in a while. I love your car. I love your bike, by the way.
Thank you.
The video you did with both of them in it was one of my favorites.
Thank you.
You didn't talk about anything else except the car and the bike. That was awesome.
And the plates. He talked about the plates.
Yeah, well, a little bit. Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah. Is it weird going on a show and people knowing all this stuff about you and you don't know them very well?
No, it's pretty normal. I do get a lot of this. I get a lot of hosts that are very, I mean, even Alex Zach and Luke Story. I mean, they personally text me, they personally call me with private information that I help them with. You know, so it's just kind of, it is what it is. It's a beautiful thing. It's you know, when I started doing all this and I started getting into all this, I sort of lost all the friends and all the social connections, and even myself and the doctor at the dental office started to kind of drift apart quite a bit. So for me, it's sort of like, you know, this is kind of like my new tribe of individual people, and I really enjoy being so welcomed into people's lives, because for a long time it was the polar opposite. It was get out. It was, we don't want to have anything to do with you. It was being ignored. It was, you're insane. It was, you know, it was the opposite for a long time. So it's just it's very nice to have the opposite of that now that we're 2 years into this. I mean, literally, when I launched the first website, within 3 or 4 months, I had pretty much, that was it. I was asked to leave the house I was in, and my relationship with the doctor had gotten very poor very fast, and many other relationships were gone and poor very, very fast. And I hadn't even, that was just the text base. That wasn't even before, that was before we had even gotten into the course and all the other stuff and the audio visual and everything else. So,
was that because of what you were doing and the road you were taking?
Yes, exactly.
Wow. So yeah, some people are like, oh, you got to go pay your taxes.
Or
it wasn't even that. It was just people were just scared to death. They're just scared to death. They think that the CIA and the FBI and the IRS are going to come crashing through the windows at any second. And they live their life in a perpetual state of fear. And they don't want to look at it. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to come anywhere near it. And you talk about it, they just see windows crashing and glass coming at their face, and that's the end of the story.
Right.
And I don't really want to be associated with people like that anymore. So, you know, that was a natural evolution of my social and professional situation. I don't know what else to say. It's like, you know, if you don't want to take a look at this stuff, and you don't want to look up some words in a dictionary, and you don't want to understand your relationship via contracts with the government and other things and financials in a deeper and more meaningful way, then I mean, this is my whole life now, so I don't really know what we would talk about. It's one of those things where it becomes a little bit awkward, because you're hanging out and then it's like, okay, we don't really have the same relationship we had before. All I want to talk about is this stuff. All I think about is this stuff. So it's okay. You know what I mean? It's okay. It's a natural evolution. Almost everyone that goes down this path experiences some level of this, whether it's family. I hear a lot of stories about family, whether it's employer. I hear a lot of stories about people getting their tax liabilities taken off through exemptions and stuff like that. And then the employers are freaking out, or the payroll companies freaking out, or people even getting fired, or all sorts of things have happened. And so it's just kind of one of those things where it is what it is, you know?
Yeah.
It's funny how how we're just so brainwashed to just fall in line, and we saw it, of course, with COVID. We saw so much of it happen. It was so evident, and but what's come from that is people are, because of the internet, because of the information available, people are starting to wake up a little bit more to, hey, there's more going on here than what we've been told. and we've been sold a pretty good bill of goods. And as people dig a little deeper, I'm sure your following is exponentially growing because of that as well.
With a lot of those people, I'm sure, because a lot of people, you're right, Joey. A lot of people are waking up. That was almost like it almost had the opposite effect. If they were trying to cause fear and angst and anxiety, for some people, it had a completely opposite effect, and it pushed people to do things that they didn't even believe were capable of. And for people to start seeing behind all the facade. And that's why I was kind of going with that question earlier. Have you noticed an uptick? But you've probably noticed an uptick the entire time because this whole thing's been going up.
I mean, it's always been an uptick. We've had a really strong January and February, and things have kind of leveled off. Like if I were to go just based off of the amount of people at the website, we're at about 70,000 a month right now. But that's about ready to, like I said, there's some shows that I just did, and there's some shows coming up here that are just going to blow that straight out of the water. I even have someone who is very close to Joe Rogan who will be speaking to his team or him about me as regards to me being in Austin for a couple weeks. So if I get the Rogan call, the bat signal, I will be clearing my schedule and I'll be heading over to his place immediately.
He's going to want you to smoke weed with him.
Well,
like Elon Musk did.
Well, whatever. He probably, I don't think he, whatever. I have a bottle of Crown Royale. I wish I got it from not Crown Royale, something else, some really expensive thing that someone sent me, a fan sent me, and I was hoping to actually open it on the Joe Rogan show, but we'll see. I'm not going to bring it with me because I don't have him scheduled. But
or bring it and just know it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's it is what it is.
Manifest it.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Once Joe Rogan sees this show, he's gonna have to have.
Oh
it.
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's no question.
For sure. Yeah.
No question.
For sure. Absolutely.
So,
There's
it's
no
all
way
good.
out of that.
It's all good. I think Rogan is going to be in due time. You don't call Rogan, he calls you. So it's just kind of one of those things where you just keep trucking and then you get the call. You know what I mean? At some point. That's what I think.
Yeah.
So oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go
Jimmy.
ahead.
I was just going to say, a lot of people associate you with law, but you've actually written 2 books, and one of them is called Love is a Battery. And I saw you on a show, you had on Jamie Date, Jamie Stafford. Yeah. I think that's her real name.
She's wonderful.
Jamie Date. Shout out to her. She's awesome. You had her on your show, and then I found out that you had Love is a Battery as a book. And it was really interesting to me because I only saw you in this light of cucumber law. That's like all I saw. And then all of a sudden here you are with Jamie Date, and she's like, and she helps men to date and believe in themselves and find these good relationships. And I'm probably not I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. I'm going to
You're doing great, Suzanne.
I'm doing great. I'm not going to self-deprecate myself. and so whenever you were on the show with her, y'all were talking about love and relationships that whole time. And you mentioned a book called The Alabaster Girl. And I was like, whoa, this is like a side of him that I've never seen before. And or maybe, being new to you and your scene and everything. And so I think that's a side that obviously is going to come out more, but people would love to hear about. Can you tell us a little bit about your book? Or, I know that The Alabaster Girl has had a big influence on you.
Yeah. So the author of The Alabaster Girl, his name is Zan Perian, and the book was released in 2013. I didn't read it until 2017. First time I read it, it was a huge life-changing experience. I ended up getting into a 2.5-year relationship almost immediately after. I think I was while reading the book, actually. And years go by, and then COVID hits, and they have a group. It's called the Ars Amorata, which is the group that the book is kind of surrounded with, and kind of the whole deal, right? And within the Ars Amorata, there's an inner cloister of men called the Amorati, and the Amorati is basically the higher level, I guess you could say, students, the students that take this subject very seriously. And at that time, they only had something called the Essentials course, which is a 90-day course, which I did with a guy named Lee Simmons, who was great. And then there was a mastery course. The mastery course was by invite only, and you had to actually do a phone interview with Zan personally. I did the phone interview with Zan and told him everything and told him about the book and what it had done for me and all this kind of thing. And I was invited to do the mastery course. I did a mastery course in probably 2021. I think it was 21. And did the essentials course, I think, in 2020. And then the audiobook for The Alabaster Girl came out last year. I want to say about 4 or 5 months ago, maybe September, October, or August, something like that, of 2023. And the audiobook is on Audible, and it's actually in Zan's voice. And it's just wonderful for what I do now and kind of how my lifestyle is now. It'd be a little bit more difficult for me to sit down and actually read The Alabaster Girl all over again for the third or fourth or fifth time. But the audiobook is very easy for me while I'm walking, while I'm driving, while I'm, eating, while I'm doing this. And so I've listened to the audiobook several times. And I'd say at least once a year, I go through and listen to the whole audiobook once or twice. And I don't really do that with any other book. It's the only book that, for me, is truly just epically life-changing. It's changed my life so much. Every time I listen to it, it sort of has that effect. So I think it's one of the most important, powerful books in the world for men to read. It's very good for women. Women are blown away by the book, but I think for men, it's literally like a manual, like a life manual. Like it should be issued to you at birth. So yeah, that's kind of my situation with that, and very proud member of the Amirati. A lot of the major tenets, I try to learn them, and I try to follow them, and I try to be because I really like them. It's not like I have an obligation to this thing. It's just it's something that I really connect with and I really enjoy, and I really think it is helpful, and it is a big part of who I am and my brand and everything else. So yeah, it's a huge part of all this, definitely.
So
I just bought it.
Oh, sorry. Did you? I know I bought it the other day when I was listening to him talk to Andrea Rose. I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go get it right now."
Yeah, it's the best. It's the best. It's the best.
Would you say that you like or you enjoy studying relationships between people, or relationships in general?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, I've been studying that for 18, 19, 20 years. I mean, that's been one of my primary areas of study for a long time. I had a lot of difficulties connecting with women, and it was really an issue for me. And I started on this journey when I was 19 years old. I was so tired of it, and I was so fed up with it that I just kind of went on this whole adventure, and I ended up reading tons and tons of books. I ended up getting involved in various men's groups. I've been involved in probably 2 or 3 or 4 of them. Coaches, and I mean, Jamie Stafford was one of my coaches for a while. I was in a program that was called Modern Flirting, and it was with a guy named Jared, and he had a whole bunch of coaches. He had like Dale Valor. He had this other guy named Gore, who I find out lives like right down the street from me, like 3 or 4 days ago, which is really, really random. I saw him in a restaurant, and I was like, Gore? Super, super random. A guy named Cosmo, who's very popular, and Jamie was also one of those coaches, and I think there was maybe 1 or 2 other ones. And Jamie was the one I connected with the most. She's like the female version of me in a lot of ways, and love her energy. She cares so much, and her platform is so good, and she just really is amazing, truly amazing.
So you say you had trouble connecting with women. Were you just like socially awkward when you were younger? Is that?
Yeah, I was the computer nerd to the maximum. I was a Cisco.
You're kind of a savant. So I can see where, a lot of times those skills don't always rub together well. So the fact that you studied how to not be is even cooler.
At 19 years old, at 17, I think 16 or 17, I was Cisco certified as a network engineer.
Oh, wow.
So I was building entire Cisco networks from scratch and doing all back then you didn't have, you had like dynamic systems where, you could do things, but we were actually building everything manually. Still, even though that we could build things, nowadays it's a lot easier, I think, but building out networks and IP addresses and building out, sub networks and VPNs and kind of all that whole kind of idea of building all that out and putting that all together through a vocational class that I was taking. It's a 1-year vocational class, but after I did that in my junior year of high school, I begged the teacher, can you please invite me back to come back a second time? I want to do the exact same program again. And he gave me a special letter of recommendation to come back and do the program a second year. So I did the same program twice. And it was a Cisco program at a different school. And I would drive from my school at about 11:30. I'd get out. And I wouldn't need to be to the other school until like 1:15. And so a lot of adventures happened in between those couple of hours for those 2 years. And I had a 1987 Mustang GT Fox Body 5-speed.
Oh man!
So we used to have all sorts of fun in between those two schools, races and race across town and drag races and all sorts of good stuff.
I want an 86. I want to build a 4i Fox Body.
Yeah, their Fox bodies are, I've owned a handful, and they're really fun. Really always the car of choice between my friends and I when I was growing up was the Fox Body Mustang. We had many of them between all of us. We probably had 9 throughout my whole childhood.
So you've always been a Mustang guy, huh?
Yeah, it's it was always the most accessible, and it was always the easiest, and it was always just we had a lot of engines and transmissions and stuff laying everywhere and
laying all around.
So it's just kind of like my friends Mike and Mike literally were the ones who were both mechanics, and they were the ones who just always working on something, always upgrading something, always doing something. So I was around a lot of gearheads as a kid, and that's kind of what I grew up with, gearheads. And then I wasn't around a lot of computer nerds, but I just loved computers, and I just loved fiddling with them so much, and did some stuff and built a lot of stuff and did all sorts of craziness and became Cisco certified at a young age. So computers were like my passion, and then via my friends who were all gearheads, cars and stuff became a passion of mine. But cars was not something I wanted to do by myself in my own garage at home. Computers was that passion at that point in time. So when I was at home and there was nothing else going on, I was fiddling with a computer 24/7. And then when I was with my friends, we were doing street racing and getting involved in street racing and building up the cars and doing burnouts and donuts and going all sorts of crazy, going to the track, doing drag race days and all sorts of goofiness. So one of the craziest things we did as a kid that is a crazy story. I could tell all sorts of stories about my childhood. Was my friend Mike Riffett, who was my best friend for a lot of my childhood, like one of my closest friends. We would drive around on the back roads of Indiana, and we would find these old cars that were sitting around with tall grass around them or whatever. And Mike was just a world-class negotiator. I mean, he was a natural. He didn't learn from anyone, but he could talk you in or out of anything. He's talked himself out of handcuffs right in front of me. And so he would pull over, and we would be kind of like driving down the road all slow, looking around the country roads, and he would be like, that one there, we're going to, he'd knock on the door. He'd be like, hello, miss. He'd be like, blah, 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 blah. I see that car back there. And the wife of the husband, it's the husband's car, always the same story, right? And she'd go, I've been wanting him to get rid of that car, and we would always Mike would always kind of sick the wife on the husband and these are wonderful young kids, blah, blah, blah. You should give them the car. And blah, blah. We ended up buying these cars for like $20.
The whole car?
The whole car, yeah.
Okay.
And, it might have been messed up. It might have been not running. It might have been this. And we had a little box full of all sorts of tools and spark plugs, and we had an extra battery. We had all sorts of good stuff. And Mike was so talented and so smart. And I didn't know anything about anything. I didn't know how to sell. I didn't know. We were rolling up on these people's houses. It's just totally crazy to me. And he just, as if it was just another day, just eating a ham sandwich for lunch. He'd negotiate the deal. He'd buy the car for $20. He'd diagnose the car in 20 minutes, and he'd get what we want, or he would go down to the store and get what we needed, come back. He'd have me drive the original car, and then I would drive, that car or whatever, and we would just drive the car around. We would beat the hell out of it and street race it and jump it over train tracks and Dukes of Hazzard and all this stuff. And then we would go to the junkyard and we'd sell it for tonnage. So we get like $240 for it. So we'd have like 2 or 3 days worth of fun. And then we would just go and junk the car. We would throw like old sinks and sandbags in the trunk, hoping that they'd never find them when they get them up on the way station. And then we would sell these cars to the junkyard and make, we'd spend $20 and have 2 days of fun and spend $20 in gas. And then we'd make $240. Or if we can get our hands on a really nice car, then he would buy something nicer. Like I remember one time he bought this 1986 Oldsmobile Royale Burlingham. It was beautiful and it needed brake lines. And he ended up spending $300 and doing all the brake lines himself. And he ended up turning around and making like an $1,800 profit or something like that on that car. But we drove that thing around and beat the hell out of that thing for so long. It was just the best car ever. And then that's when you started getting into the Fox body Mustangs. And then we started having a whole bunch of those. And you'd pick one up that had a blown transmission. And we had like 3 of them laying around. Yeah. And we would just pop another one in. And then my other friend, Mike, he got involved in all this. And there was another guy named Ryan. And they were all gearheads. They were always doing something with the cars. And I was just sort of like the tag along, essentially. Mm-hmm. But I was a tag along that laughed at everything they did. And I was like the greatest audience member that they could ever ask for. So I was pretty much like the designated audience member they always wanted there. I was the ultimate antagonizer of everything they wanted to do. Any ideas they had, I was practically in pigtails with a cheerleader outfit, jumping up and down with pom-poms over everything that they muttered out of their mouth. Every crazy, brilliant idea they'd have, I'd be doing cartwheels or backflips off the side of a building. So
let's do it.
I was the instigator. I was the spark that would always ignite the flame, always. And so we have a lot of stories. A lot of stories. A lot of
which led to Mankinis.
Yeah, which eventually over the years led to Mankinis. But yeah, a lot of near-death stories. A lot of guns pulled on us and high-speed chases. We used to go. One of the things we used to do, which
was this in Chicago?
This was in Indiana, right by Chicago.
Indiana. Okay, yeah, not far from there.
We used to antagonize people on purpose to get them to chase us, and then we would get into high-speed chases. Not with police, with like normal people, right? And the amount of high-speed chases that I've been in my life, between 16 and 19 years old, I can't even count. We used to go out at night and prowl and antagonize people to get into high-speed chases with us. And my friend Mike was his repair skills are only dwarfed by his driving skills. He has driving skills that are just not of this planet. So there was never, I don't care who you are. I don't care what you've got. He could have a car that's 40% slower than yours. You ain't ever going to catch Mike. No fucking.
He's like dumb, huh?
No,
all about the family.
No. He was just brilliant, and he was a natural. Yeah. He never studied anything. He was just a brilliant man. Brilliant.
What does he do now?
He drives I believe he drives a dump truck. The last I knew.
Are you being serious?
Yeah, he drives a dump truck professionally. And he works for he delivers to construction sites and stuff like that. But he's always doing something. He's got his hands in something. He's doing something. He's always, and come to find out, a year into doing all this crazy stuff, he calls me one day and he's been doing that kind of stuff or some semblance of it for years. On his own privately. He didn't really let anybody know. So he's just a brilliant guy. He was someone that I learned a lot from. His confidence level was so high, and he just understood so many things. I don't even know how. To this day, I don't know how he knew all these things. And he was just such a natural talent at so many things, and he just had such a infectious confidence. And he was very, very overweight, like extremely overweight. He was like a giant ball. And he just walked around and he was just this big, huge, overweight man, and he just had this unshakable confidence about everything. And you think, you look at him and then you look at the way he behaves and you're like, this guy's a BSer, big time BSer. But then he performs.
Back it up.
Anything. Yeah. He'll drive anything. He'll sell anything. He'll buy anything anywhere. He's just like, and you're just like hanging around the guy and you're just like, Jesus, man. You're like, what can't you do? So being around him. Man. Yeah, being around him as a kid was a huge influence for everything that I do now.
Was he older than you?
No, maybe like a year or something, but pretty much the same age. And I
Okay.
I spent almost every minute of every day with that guy. I mean, for years. He lived in Valparaiso, Indiana, and I would just spend all my time every day. I'd go over there and see what he's up to, and I was the antagonizer, so he'd be hanging around and blah blah blah, and I'd be like, hey, maybe we should, go out and get a high-speed chase. And he's like, you got gas money? It was always, I'll pay for the gas money, you find the high-speed chase. You know what I mean? That was always our relationship. And as long as I had gas money, man, he was up for it. He was up for high-speed chases. So that was our deal,
Yeah, when I was younger, the gas money was less, and $20 would get you beer, tacos, and gas for the whole weekend.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, this the guy that posted this right here, this is what we used to do out on the country roads, because I grew up in Oklahoma, and we'd be going 110 miles an hour. It's pitch black, and he'd just turn the lights off as we went through the stop signs instead of stopping, which was totally idiotic, and we probably could have died 100 times, but
Yeah.
luckily it did happen. So yeah, I'm pretty familiar with some of the instigating you were doing there.
Having some fun in the Midwest. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
That's cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about what, let's get into a little bit of the nitty gritty about what it is that you do. Because there's a lot of people on here that don't know. As far as when you have entered into contracts that you're not even aware of, from birth even, and how those contracts affect us as we move forward through life, and why is it just now that people are finding out about this?
Yeah, it's a very convoluted area. There's a lot of confusion.
On purpose, right?
On purpose, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I don't really think hardly anybody really knows anything about anything. I think we're all pretty much lost at this point. I think it's been a long time since anybody actually knew anything about anything. So I don't really think much in terms of like people have the intent to do this. Someone obviously does near the top somewhere, but I think 99% of everyone is just kind of lost just as much as we are. Even the judges and the police and everybody, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But when you start to research the law and contracts and that sort of thing, you realize very rapidly that involuntary servitude cannot and does not exist, and that every single thing that you're involved in, whether it be real estate taxes, whether it be taxes, income taxes, state taxes, payroll taxes, traffic laws, driver's licenses, I mean, you name it. The list goes on and on and on and on. There isn't a single thing in this country specifically that is not completely and entirely voluntary. And I know that might sound very, very shocking to a lot of people, but the 13th Amendment, and I don't like the 14th Amendment, and Congress has already said the 14th Amendment was never properly ratified by 3/4 of states. So the 14th Amendment doesn't even exist, in my opinion.
Right.
But the 13th Amendment is very clear. There is no such thing as involuntary servitude. Now, voluntary servitude is very, very real and very, very fine. And anyone can volunteer into any situation they want at any point in time. The way the government agencies and the way that the government translates everything that we are doing is it's all based off of a voluntary compliance. People say, oh, well, if you don't have a driver's license, then you can't drive. That is not true. You do not need a driver's license to drive at all. In fact, traffic laws only apply to you because you have a driver's license, because you volunteered to enter into the system of which the traffic laws exist for. Without a driver's license, then the traffic laws and traffic violations cannot possibly exist on your behalf, because if you look at the little ticket thing that a lot of police officers have, not all of them, but many of them, it says complaint on them. A complaint is the same word for lawsuit. So what they're doing is, what a ticket is very, very simple. A ticket is a complaint or lawsuit for breach of contract, meaning you contracted in to state of California via the driver's license. And because you volunteered to become a part of this system, they are now writing a breach of contract for you because you have volunteered into the system. If you unvolunteer out of the system, they can no longer write a complaint for breach of contract, because in order for there to be breach of contract, there would have to be a prior contract that would show a duty or obligation to perform on that contract. And this is the way that many countries operate. This is the way that the United States of America operates. It operates through entirely voluntary contractual agreements. And the problem is that we all walk around signing these huge reams of paper that are placed in front of us all the time without reading any of it at any point in time. And that is the exact and specific reason why we end up in, quote, involuntary contracts, which they were totally voluntary to begin with. You never need to sign them, and you could have read them or changed them at will, and you did not. It's all an illusion. It's an illusion that's completely based off of our own disinterest and our own misunderstanding as to the power of these various things that we are signing. For example, when you sign your children into a public school, you'd probably be quite shocked as to what that contract actually is. When you're signing up for a driver's license, you'd probably be quite shocked as to what that contract actually means. Even when you sign up for registration for your vehicle, which is actually called the Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Program, and it's located in 34 USC 12611. Even if you knew what that contract was, you'd be very, very shocked. For example, if you pay, so the way that registration tags work, for example, just to give a very specific example of one particular thing, it's called the Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Program. And what you're doing is you're paying into the program voluntarily. It says right in 34 USC 12611 that they're supposed to tell you that the program is entirely voluntary. Multiple times, actually, throughout 34 USC 12611, they tell you that it's voluntary, and you have to be told that it's voluntary. So what police officers need in order to detain or stop you in any respect, whether you're walking or whether you're in a car, they need something called RAS, which stands for Reasonable Articulable Suspicion. There has to be some kind of actual specific thing that they see, such as smelling drugs, seeing guns, gunshots. There has to be some kind of reasonable, articulable suspicion that they need in order to further detain you or to ask you additional questions or to essentially run discovery, is basically what it is, which is a legal term for what you do in a lawsuit when you're collecting information. They're essentially doing discovery with you at that point in time. It's almost like a little micro lawsuit, right? Now, in the Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Program, it says very clearly that what's happening is that you're basically entering into a commercial program where the state is going to assist you to help you prevent the theft of your vehicle, as well as find your vehicle and bring your vehicle back to you if said vehicle is stolen. The way that the program works is that you're supposed to actually, when you sign up for registration, you're supposed to actually issue a schedule, essentially, to the Department of Motor Vehicles. And in that schedule is supposed to be like what types of drivers are going to be driving the vehicle at what times of the day. And you have special circumstances, then you have regular circumstances. And what it is that the police, the reason why they pull you over and they want your ID, they don't even know this, by the way. No police officer knows this. Right. The reason why they ask for the ID is because the Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Program, the way it works is that your identification is related to all of the registered drivers or owners on the vehicle to determine whether or not the vehicle is stolen as per the Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Program. Now, when you enter into the Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Program, which is a voluntary program, and you actually pay to be a part of it, it's such a commercial transaction. What you're doing is that they say right in the program that you are waiving all of your rights, and it says specifically that the police officers do not need, they don't use the term reasonable articulable suspicion. They use something like reasonable suspicion or something like that. It's a little bit different, but it's the same term. They do not need absolutely any RAS or anything else. You're waiving all your rights for RAS or anything else. They don't need any of that to detain the vehicle to determine whether or not the vehicle is actually being driven by the proper owner or if it is in fact stolen. Now, it says right in the Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Program that to exit the program, you simply remove the tag or the license plate And then they recommend that you let the DMV know that you are exiting the program, but it is not a requirement for exiting the program. The only requirement for exiting the program is to simply remove the tag or remove the plate from the vehicle. It says that very clearly within the confines of the Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Program. So this is a contract that you are paying for a service, and within the confines of paying for that voluntary service, that voluntary contract, of which is not involuntary at all whatsoever, you are essentially waiving any right for anyone to have reasonable articulable suspicion to detain you or pull you over. They do not need any reason at all. Now the police don't even know this. The police still think they need RAS to pull you over. The real truth, in fact, is that if you have current registration tags and those tags are affixed to the back of your license plate, the police and the sheriff's office do not need RAS to pull you over and detain you at all. Now, it says nothing about search warrants in the Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Program. It just has to do with identifying the driver and finding out, who the driver is in relation to who should be driving the car and who owns the car. That is what they're essentially doing. They can pull you over, they can detain you, they can do whatever they want without RAS to determine your identity in relationship with ownership and drivability of the car. And that is what the commercial contract that you are volunteering to be a part of and actually paying for as a subscription service. Registration is a subscription service, and you're paying the state to help you make sure your car is not stolen. Now, police don't know this. The DMV doesn't know this. Nobody knows this. And if you mention this to the DMV, they'll say, no, that's not true. It is true. You can read 34 USC 12611 for yourself. And it literally says that it says that there's a label or decal that is affixed to the back of the vehicle or the license plate. It has all the details. It's very clear. When you read the Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Program, you realize that's what registration is. That's what it is.
Wow. So when you opted out of the program and you have motor vehicles yourself that you drive on public streets or that you operate, I don't know what the wording has to be correct there. What do you do instead of that? Because you're going to get pulled over without a tag of some sort on the vehicle, right? And then you got to explain all this to the police officer who, like you said, has no clue what's going on at the time.
Yeah. So the way that works is there's multiple points. Cars are a little bit more complicated than a lot of the other stuff that I teach. So a certificate of title is the same deal. You're sending in the original title. So the original actual title to a vehicle is called the Manufacturer Certificate of Origin or Manufacturer Statement of Origin, MCO or MSO, depending on whether it's foreign or domestic vehicle. And you actually have to send that MCO, MSO into the DMV to get a certificate of title or pink slip in exchange. So what happens is you're basically donating that vehicle to the state, and you become what's called the registered owner, which you can look the definition of what that means up on the internet. It means you have a security interest in whatever it is that you're the registered owner for. Mm-hmm. So the term owner is actually has multiple different levels to it. You can be a partial owner, a beneficial owner, a registered owner. There's all these different terms. If you want the term that is used for what most people think ownership actually means, that term is actually called dominion. And if you want the clearest term of all terms to use in relationship to that, you would say absolute dominion. So having absolute dominion means that you actually have full and utter control over the placement and usage of said automobile. You're like many steps below that. You're the registered owner, which isn't even remotely close to absolute dominion. It's like the 5-yard line out of a 100-yard football field. Wow. So the thing is that what they issue you is they issue you with something called a certificate of title. Mm-hmm. That's the pink slip. Certificate means copy of something of which the original is located somewhere else. Mm-hmm. The original is the MCO or the MSO, and the certificate of title is a abstract title that is a representation of the actual MCO or MSO.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to get rid of the certificate of title. Then you have to opt out of the motor vehicle theft prevention program. Plus, you have to handle the driver's license or get rid of the driver's license if you want to fully exit the volunteer system that is established that you are paying a subscription fee to be a part of.
Wow. So you and your Mustang, and we'll talk about your plates after this, but you get pulled over for speeding or running a stop sign or something like that. Has that happened to you first off?
No.
It hadn't yet. Okay.
I've been using private motor carrier DOT plates for 2 years, maybe a little bit less than 2 years. I've never had any issues or been pulled over or anything. I feel like once you are of a certain mindset and once you understand a lot of this information, you just all of a sudden I'm like invisible to police. You could do almost anything. I've driven right up next to a cop at like 130 miles an hour. This is probably like 3 weeks ago, and he didn't even do anything.
Don't they compliment your car?
Yeah, I had a couple guys late at night. This was probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago as well. A couple of guys late at night, they pulled up behind me and then they pulled up next to me and they said, roll in your window. And I rolled my window down. And they said, hey, on the back of your car, the brake lights, the third brake light looks like it's out on both sides. Is that the way it came from the factory? And I go, what? And I pulled the e-brake and I got out of the car and I went in the back of the car and I said, oh no, that's the way it is from the factory on these cars. And he goes, oh, that makes sense. He said, you have a beautiful car, man. Really, really beautiful car. He says, have a great night. And they drove off. And that was the end of the story. And they were next to my car. They weren't behind me. They were next to me over here on the passenger side. Yeah. So I don't have any issues with the police. I don't have any problems with the police. And I think a lot of that comes down to mindset.
Right. I believe that too.
And knowledge, knowledge and mindset. It's both very important. You can't just, I always tell people over and over and over again, it isn't the passport, it isn't the plates, it isn't any of these things that give any of this power. It's your mind and your disposition and your knowledge and the way you treat others. And it's your charisma, really. That's the ultimate determining factor as to what occurs with all of this, which I have gotten into in some of the videos and I continue to talk about because it is really the most important aspect of all of this,
You encourage people to be respectful and to treat others the way you want to be treated. And I've heard you, and I stopped the video and wrote it down. You say this in several of your podcasts. You say, I truly believe in the power of a human being when they really want something and they set their mind to something. It just happens. All human beings have that innately built in them. You talk about mindset a whole lot, actually. And you kind of sprinkle it in your course. And I hear you talk about it in every single podcast I've listened to so far. And there was one in particular that you had with Sache Stone and Sean Stone.
Oh, yeah.
That was a pretty cool one. And they were specifically asking you much more philosophical questions. And there was even a point where the host asked you and the other guy the exact same question. Your answer was, and he was supposed to be like the philosophy more angle, and your answer was actually more philosophical than his. But the message that kept coming through was, what energy are you sending out? Like, who are you as a person? If you treat people respectfully, if you have the knowledge, if you use that knowledge not to screw over your neighbor, but to help them, it makes a huge difference in how the world interacts with you and the universe interacts with you. And I think that goes a long way whenever you're sharing information that can be very, people associate with anxiety and fear just out of ignorance.
That's exactly it, ignorance. Because if you're driving around like this and you're doing this and you don't have the knowledge to back it up, you're going to be driving around fearful, just waiting to get pulled over and shackled and thrown in the back of a pig wagon.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And we have had some of those things happen. We had a recent event here where a guy was arrested for, but he was screaming and hollering at the cops and saying all this crazy stuff. And it was just really awful. I'm actually pretty irritated about the whole situation because I'm being blamed for the situation when, he heavily altered the plates and I don't even know if his passport's set up correctly and he's like behaving like a lunatic. So there are a lot of examples, or not a lot of examples. I've only seen one or two so far. Both of them are very recent, literally the past few days, where we have had any issues. And the thing is that, the primary issue that both these people have had over the past few days that I've seen that have come into an area where I can actually investigate what's happening, is that they believe that the plates and the whatever that's what does all the work. And that's not what does all the work. It's your mindset, it's your charisma, it's your behavior. It's how you actually, it's not because you have diplomatic plates. It's because you are a diplomat. There's a big difference.
Be a diplomat, right?
Are you a diplomat, or do you just have diplomatic plates? There's a big difference. Huge difference.
Are you a douchebag with diplomatic plates, or are you a diplomat?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
So that is the primary issue. That is the primary gap between, what actually works and what actually doesn't work, is that people believe that these external pieces of metal or pieces of plastic or pieces of paper are the most important thing, and you just kind of hand these things over and it does all the work for you. They are just tools. They are supplementary tools to your mindset, your behavior, your knowledge of the information, your ability to educate and calmly interact with law enforcement or whoever else you may need to interact with. It's very simple.
Right. So we have a question popped up. Steve asked, "What about insurance?"
If you look on the Department of Transportation's website and you type in like insurance liability for private motor carrier, you will see that insurance is not required for a private motor carrier. It's optional.
Somebody else posted, "Insurance is a choice. Use passport number instead of SS." Getting into it a little deeper here. For a little disclaimer here, don't listen to this show and go try to do all this. Go
You
take
should sign
Brandon's
up for his
course. Go
Yeah.
take his course. Get educated on this. So that's exactly what we're talking about. A little bit of knowledge is enough to get you in a lot of trouble. Go learn as much as you can about this before you start trying to put little parts of it into play and get yourself in a position.
Yeah. And he absolutely walks you through. I mean, your course is great. And you keep, you mentioned several times too, when you're interacting with these people, because they don't know. A lot of the people that you're interacting with in these offices don't necessarily know what you're talking about either. And then they respond to you in fear. And if you respond back angrily or with aggression, it only escalates it. You mentioned in your podcast with Jamie, the reason you brought her on is you thought she was important because she deals with relationships and how to communicate and charisma. And you felt that was very important for your audience. And as long, I think I hear you on that, because you even have a section in your video where you're like, you're talking about the word sovereign citizen and how it's an oxymoron. And you're talking about how some people have taken that one term out of reference and they've just handled it so poorly. And so this is an example
and made a lot of enemies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that this is not the direction to go. You want to educate yourself. You want to communicate. The person on the other side that you're talking to may not know what's going on either. And they're trying to figure this out. And so I think that's a huge message that has to come along with the education.
Excuse me. Yeah, that's 100% true. It's a situation where you need to just study until you feel good about something, and then you need to realize that it's you that's going to make it work. It's not. It's sort of like, I do a lot of litigation stuff now, and one of the things that I already kind of learned before from the various teachers that I've learned from, but I'm starting to realize more and more. You win the cases that you're willing to fight for. I mean, it isn't just a bunch of paper and a bunch of codes that wins cases. It's you pounding through brick walls like the Juggernaut. That's what wins cases. So, if you think that all these tools and all these supplementary tools are going to become primary and you're going to be able to just sit back and not have to worry about anything, I mean, that's just not how this works. That's not how the world works,
So Ken here wants to know if you visited a hot springs pool about 30 miles west of Pueblo, Colorado in the past few years, and if that was you that he had that session with and under the pool, I guess. I don't know why he's asking that.
No, I have
He
no
must have
idea.
had a romantic encounter somewhere. You look just like the guy.
No.
Wasn't him, Ken. Sorry.
So you were talking about litigation. You've gone to you've often said,
Spit it
"Hey,
out, Suzanne."
Okay, I'm working on it. Thanks, Joe." Like, okay, so you've said that in your course, there's a lot that's free. If they want to have you basically hold their hand, then that's going to cost them. But it
you didn't
sounds
say
like,
hand.
I know you said it in a much funnier way. I think it had to do with the penis and the hand and something, some kind of action. But we shared that with the mastermind. I'm not going to say it here, but so they, now, as I listen to you, it sounds like you've gotten to that point where a lot of people are requesting that from you because you're in some litigation cases right now. You're in several of them right now, as a matter of fact. Aren't you in like 3, I think?
I just filed our 4th. The 4th one is my own personal pro se with Amex. We have many more in the works. I'm going to be heading to Austin, and then I'll come back, and then I've got all sorts of other ones that I want to get rolling. So we may have maybe 15 or so by the time I get back that I'll need to work on and get rolling.
You're gonna be a busy boy.
Yeah. So, I mean, the faster I start winning cases, then the faster I can release the pro se litigant course, which is my next big project, which I'm not going to release until I start winning cases.
Right.
And start winning cases, I can retire. So,
but you like it, don't you?
Oh, I'll do it. I'll be doing this for the rest of my life, I think, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the retirement plan? What are you going to do?
Probably just do the same thing I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I'll probably do the same thing in the same spot with the same shit, honestly.
Yeah. That's a good life when you're doing.
Just tell everybody, hey, I'm retired. I'm retired.
I'm retired. I'm going to be a pickle farmer. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
What's it feel like to go in there? Because, like you're coming at it from a different angle. A lot of these people, I would imagine there's a lot of people.
I haven't been in the courtroom yet. We just do it all through mail. We do it all through writing. We do it all through teleconferencing. We haven't even we did a meet and confer with the defense attorneys, but we haven't even had anything with the judge yet.
It doesn't even go to the judge. It stops before then.
The judge. We just haven't even we haven't even gotten that far in the suits. We haven't gotten all the way to where we're going to be doing like an actual conference with the judge. If we get that far, then that's what we'll do. We'll see. We don't know where these things are going.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we'll make sure we keep up on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you sign up for his course, y'all, he keeps you updated on a lot of this that's going on. I think I got 2 emails in reference to the American Express or Amex, and so it's I haven't had a chance to look at them yet, but I saw them in there.
Yeah, and then obviously through Pacer, pacer.uscourts.gov, I believe it is. You can get a free account there. The account's free, but it costs 10 cents per page to download documents. And you can type in the case number, the cause number, and the cases will come up, and you can see all of the various motions and memorandums and kind of everything else associated with all the cases that I do. All cases everywhere are all public knowledge, public information. So you can type in anything into Pacer, and you can type in keywords, you can type in people's names, you can type in whatever you want, and you will see all the information about various cases and all the different filings of all the various cases. So it's all totally public information, and it's a public platform.
That's cool to know.
What was your first big win, so to speak? Like as you were studying all this and really getting into it, and you were beginning to send in all the paperwork for yourself and end a lot of these contracts, was there a point where you thought like, I think I got this, and then there was a point where you're like, okay, I've got this, like I understand this?
No, I mean the first 6 months that I was studying all the different books and stuff like that, I didn't do a single thing. I was actually out of town that whole time, or like half that time. By the time I came back into town, it was like March 1st of 2022 when I got back, and then by March 14th, the website was up and running. Everything was running. So by about the 6 month point, by the time I had gotten back into California, I was hit the ground at about 400 miles an hour. I had my passport, my revocation of election, my driver's license was redone. I did all of it within probably just a few months. And then that's when I started shooting the course videos, and then shooting the course videos through late May and then all through June, and then releasing that on July 2nd of 2022, and then just riding that wave. I mean, 2022, from the moment I launched the website, basically nonstop all the way up until mid 23 was just like nonstop 5,000 miles an hour, something, shows every single day. And then I took a break. My first real break was probably like November, December of 2023. And then a good chunk of January of 2024, I sort of took off. And then as soon as I kind of got back into the driver's seat, or whatever you want to call it, that's when all the litigation started. So this is sort of like the next phase of all of this, in my opinion. I mean, we'll see. Maybe it's not. I don't know what else it could be. Right. So now we're in this sort of litigation phase, and we have been since late January, something like that. And we don't know how long these cases are going to take. These cases could take, forever. So we don't. That's kind of why I want to have 15 of them going. I want to actually get some wins and get some things shut out, and get some things completed, and not just have one or two cases and they're both just dragging on forever. I don't want to get into that. So that's kind of why I'm trying to get so many of these things up and running at the same time, because once I learn all this stuff and once we have a few wins, then we're going to do the pro sailing course. That's going to be a lot of fun. So
are you going to charge for that one?
I don't think so. No.
Really? Wow.
Man, yeah.
So much value.
Where did you learn this business model of how you're doing this? Or is this something that you came up on your own? Who's
Dan S. Pena.
Yeah.
Dan S. Pena. 100%, 1000%. Mm-hmm. The one and only.
He is the one and only.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about him if our audience is not familiar with him?
So Dan S. Pena is this he's the $1 trillion
when you
man.
Listen to him.
He's the $1 trillion man. He used to be the $1 billion man or whatever, and now he's the $1 trillion man. He's this old white guy who lives in a castle in Scotland, and he has this online platform, and I think it's danspena.co.uk, something like that. And he's been doing this for a long time. His first seminars were, I think, in the late 80s, early 90s. And he tells a lot of stories. He has on his website, he has like all the videos for like every single day of every single seminar, stretching all the way back to like 2006 or 2007 or 2008, something like that. So he has like tons and tons of videos, tons of videos. I mean, he even says in a lot of his videos, when people first arrived at his castle for his seminar, he's like, you're all fucking retarded. He's like, you could have gotten all this information for free. I have everything on my website. You're an idiot. Why are you here? Let's get started. That's basically how he starts every single seminar. And he teaches a lot of things. He teaches intensity. He says that he talks a lot about high performance people, high performance this, top 500 CEOs. Finance, how to get loans, his whole model is the QLA model, which stands for Quantum Leap Advantage. Mm-hmm. Essentially, the way that QLA works is you acquire businesses through getting loans and getting whatever, and you acquire businesses, and then you play the businesses off of one another, and you clean them up, and then you buy, let's say, like home improvement. You get like a glass cleaning company, you get like a floor cleaning company, and you get like a hardwood floor redo company. And then you do that, and you buy these things, and then you leverage them off one another, and then you kind of build it up, and you have this kind of like conglomerate of businesses or whatever in the fastest possible time. 2 years is really kind of like one of his major marks that he likes to say. You don't sleep. You sleep on the floor unless you're a little bitch, essentially, is kind of how he teaches. And you sleep on the floor. He talks about Elon Musk a lot. He likes Elon Musk a lot. And
Elon did that. Yeah.
I think he still does that.
Yeah.
And you just basically work your ass off for 2 years. And then he calls it, I forget the name of it. It's called like a lifetime of money or legacy money or whatever. He has a term for it. Lifetime, whatever, something. And then after 2 years, he calls it plumping up the hog, essentially. And then what you do is you do either a private sale of the entire thing, kind of like what Tom Anderson did with MySpace or a lot of these different examples, or you do an initial public offering. But he does prefer the private sale because the private sale, you'll get more money for, and it's just a lot less work and it's kind of cleaner. But he does talk about IPOs a lot too. So it's basically how to get to either a private sale or an IPO as quickly as possible. Just blazing fast speed, super ultra high intensity type teaching. Does not get any crazier. He's the David Goggins.
Yeah, I was going to say that
world.
the David Goggins of business. That's
he's the David Goggins. David Goggins is more recent. Dan Pena's been around forever.
Right.
But I think he got popular over the past 7 or 8 years. And I think I found Dan Pena in maybe 2016, 2017, something like that. Around the same time I started listening to Zamparian. Those were two at the same time kind of things, huge shifts in my world. My four, the four biggest influencers to everything that I do in my platform is Dan S. Pena, Dan S. Kennedy, Zamparian, and then obviously L. Ron Hubbard. Those are the four people that are the biggest influences for the way I think or how I behave or what I do or how my platform is. Like Dan S. Kennedy is all of the sales and marketing training. Pena is not really like you would think he's kind of like a sales guy. He talks about that, but he's more just a like just pure drive,
Business
like
guy, right? Motivation in business.
He's like getting hit by a hurricane, basically.
Yeah.
He's like he always talks about when he goes in and sees bankers, he always dresses like one of the things that he teaches a lot of cool things, but one of the things he teaches is you should always be the most well-dressed person in the room, to the point where you actually make other people feel embarrassed. And no, he's not kidding. Like
no, he dresses really nice. Even and everything I've seen him in, he's like, he looks.
He does that on purpose because he wants to put everyone in the room,
make them uncomfortable.
As quickly as possible, right?
Yeah.
So he is literally basically the Genghis Khan of this planet, essentially. Dan S. Pena, he is screaming quite often. He does that partially because he enjoys it. He does that partially because it's effective, and he does it partially just because that's his whole thing. He just screams a lot. As you listen to him more and more and more, you realize that he's not screaming because he's angry. He's screaming because he cares, but he will never, ever, ever admit that. And you wouldn't know that if you haven't watched him for a while. If you just saw him randomly out of nowhere, you'd think he's totally psychopathic. And he literally says, I am psychopathic and I'm proud of it. But the thing is that the more you listen to him, you realize he's totally not at all. So it's just kind of interesting. He's just an interesting guy. He just has a very interesting way of going about things. And you just realize that he says, fuck you all, and you're all pieces of shit. And you aren't worth the stain. You know, you should have run down your mama's leg. And he says all these things. He screams all these things. But as you listen to him more and more and more, you just kind of realize that, I don't know. He just kind of, he's an interesting guy. I strongly recommend that you check him out. He's really, really fantastic guy, in my opinion. He's the polar opposite of Zamparian. Zamparian is this like wispy, like loves women, like talks in prose, like everything is so light and literally like Zamparian and Dan S. Pena are like the two most opposite people like on the entire planet, literally.
So love and business, right?
Yeah. So it's an interesting, I like the mixture of it. I like the polarity of it. And I like the various different avenues. And I just I really enjoy the two sides of things. I think they're both important. I think there's a time and a place to scream, and I think there's a time and a place to talk in prose, and I think there's everything in between. So, yeah.
So Steve asked, what about driving a commercial vehicle? It's kind of like you're locked into a system so deep at that point. And all I can say about that is go take the course, because you got to start from the very beginning to dig yourself out of this hole that you've been dug into to get to the point where you're driving a commercial vehicle with a commercial license and commercial insurance and all the things that go with owning a business and doing things that way. There's different ways to own a business, right? And own a business freely.
Well, I have a landscaping company and we transport things all the time. And as part of my contract, it just says with the client, it just says in the contract, anything being transported by my trucks is owned by myself or the person who's transporting the truck, you know. So the thing is that in order for it to be considered a commercial vehicle or used for commercial purposes or commercial activity, you have to actually be driving something, whether it be cargo or property or persons, for compensation. And the thing is that when it's on the contract states that I own it while it's in transport. It wouldn't actually fit the definition of a commercial transaction. So that's how I get out of. The only way it would be a commercial vehicle is like a big rig. You could very easily get a big rig out of being a commercial vehicle. Now, an Uber or an Uber Eats or a Lyft or a taxi, that's going to be rough. That's going to be basically impossible at that point. But big rigs, I think, are really easy. You just have the client signing the fact that they don't actually take possession of the property until delivery.
Right.
So
it's not theirs. It's yours until you deliver it.
It's yours until you deliver it. And then at that point, you would not be transporting said property for compensation.
Right.
It's that simple. It's so simple. Now, at that point, you wouldn't need a CDL. You wouldn't need a driver's license. You wouldn't need anything to drive a big rig. As long as you are actually the owner of what's in the big rig, it would be a private motor carrier situation, and it would not be commercial at all.
Well, that kind of lends to the fact that you don't have to have a commercial license to drive these big RVs that people are going camping in, which is as big or bigger than half the commercial trucks that are out there.
Yeah, unless you're transporting cargo, people, persons, or property for compensation, it's not considered a commercial vehicle. It's not considered a commercial activity or a commercial vehicle. And if you look up the definition of the term driver, and I think it's Title 49, it says driver is somebody who operates a commercial motor vehicle. So the term driver is a commercial term.
Right.
So if you're driving a commercial vehicle, that means that driving means it's a commercial vehicle, and then commercial vehicle means that you're transporting cargo, property, or persons for compensation.
Hence a driver's license. So as long as you bear that driver's license, you define yourself as a driver and put yourself in that position that you're commercially operating.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah. Refer back to the course.
I had my driver's license. I went in and changed a lot of the information. I put no for U.S. citizen. I put a C/O, which means care of, which means I don't live here. I just received mail here in front of my address. And I changed my signature very heavily to reserve all my rights and to do all sorts of good things on the drive. So I had that for about a year and a half. I never carried it on me. It was actually in my apartment. And then maybe about a month and a half ago, something like that, I finally decided to go and turn it in and have it surrendered and destroyed. And I got evidence to the fact that that transaction had been completed, because you don't want to leave the DMV without some sort of evidence that that transaction had been completed. I got a signature and a date of the person who processed that for me on a piece of paper. And that's it. So now I only use my passport. I've already turned in my certificate of title for my my used automobile, the Shelby GT500. I sent all that back to be completely destroyed and for all security interest to be released on that vehicle. Never heard back, so that means that it's done. And then my motorcycle, I got the MCO straight from the dealership because I bought that vehicle brand new. So I actually have the MCO on the motorcycle.
So there's no way to get a hold of the MCO on your car after they've taken it, right? And
I don't know. For now, I'm just going to be basically using like a bill of sale or some kind of private something. I'll probably just, if I ever need to just draw something up, I'll just draw it up and have it be something like where it gets sold into my trust or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's interesting that you bring that up about the trust. Operating inside a trust makes a big difference to everything you do as well, correct?
Yeah, because when you use your name on anything, when you're born, there's something called the ens legis, or public corporation, that's created of your name in all capital letters. They can always assume that you're talking about that corporation when you ever use your name. But when you use a trust name, they can't make that assumption. So trusts are very, very powerful. Plus, the way they're structured is very powerful, because if you are the trustee of your trusts, you don't legally own anything in the trust. You just control it, but you don't actually own it. It's not your actual possession. The possessions are owned by the trust. The trust is actually a person that owns those items, and you are just the administrator of that person's items. Essentially, that's kind of how it works.
So trust are persons, and persons are corporations. It is convoluted. It's a mess. So you do realize you are a savant when it comes to this stuff. You really know this stuff very well, and you've taken to it. And most people don't pick it up quite as quickly as you have, of course. That's why I've had to watch a lot of your videos over and over.
I had to watch them several times. Yeah. I know. I was like, I don't think I'm a dumb person, but it's like, wait, hang on. Let's go back here and listen to this one again. Yeah. Thank goodness they're funny. Like there's a couple of times.
Thank you for making them entertaining. Yeah, thank you so much.
It's like if this was dry, as a lot of those people in the comments say, they go, "Oh, thank you so much. I've been listening to you," and they'll mention several other people who you've
20 years and 10 years.
Right. And I've been trying to understand this, and it's just So the humor really helps, and sometimes I rewind that too because your jokes are pretty funny.
Thank you.
I was like, Joey, come here, come listen to this one.
Yeah, it's something about jamming a cucumber up his ass. Look at this one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Funny. Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. That's kind of why I did it in that kind of fun, jokey way. I wanted it to be, lighter and more consumable, and I want it to be something that anyone can, get something out of, and that kind of thing. And but yeah, as I go on more and more shows, I'm on shows almost every single day nowadays, and I have been for a long time. It's just getting simpler and simpler and simpler and easier to explain. And now it's getting to the point now where I feel like the old man on the hill, and you go up and see the old man on the hill, and he just says, everything is voluntary. Involuntary servitude does not exist in the United States of America.
Now go take the course.
It's pretty much that simple at this point, which is
people walk down the hill.
Yeah.
And then people are like, don't know what that means, and they say thank you very much, and then they walk away in a daze. That's my typical day these days. No, I'm just kidding. I obviously go into it more and more, but I try to bang home that fact, because I think it's sort of like the ultimate kind of overarching fact behind a lot of this is that it's all voluntary. We live in a voluntary world with voluntary systems, and what they do is they trick you into volunteering, but it's still voluntary.
Mm-hmm.
So the more mind-blowing part is money. Even more mind-blowing than the other contracts and stuff is money, and how we think money works and how money really works. You want to get into that a little bit?
Yeah, so money, as per Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution, means gold and silver coins. What we actually have is, if you look at a dollar bill, it says Federal Reserve note. The term note is short for promissory note. If you look at the Bill of Exchange Act of 1882, you'll see it says bill means bill of exchange, and note means promissory note. And bills of exchange and promissory notes are both evidences of debt, and those are called negotiable instruments. So negotiable instruments are divided into two categories: bills of exchange and promissory notes. Promissory note is defined as an unconditional promise to pay, and a bill of exchange is defined as an unconditional order to pay. So when you receive a bill in the mail, bill is shortening for bill of exchange, and that bill of exchange is always ordering you to pay a set amount of money, usually by a certain time period. That in itself is a negotiable instrument. The term instrument means contract or deed or whatever, or security. And the word negotiable means transferable or easily transferable or transferable to almost anyone, meaning a check that has someone's name on it is non-negotiable, because not anyone can grab that and possess the value of that bill or whatever you want to call it. But if you have a check that's payable to the bearer, which means anyone can deposit it, it's now a negotiable bill of exchange. So negotiability or negotiable or talking about negotiation has to do with the way in which the negotiable instrument is transferable. If it's transferable to anyone and everyone, it's called a negotiable instrument. If it's written for only one specific person under specific conditions, it's typically non-negotiable. Depends. And these are all banking terms. So all bills of exchange and all promissory notes all have whatever value they say they have once they're signed and once they're brought into being, whether it's a promissory note for a car or a promissory note for a mortgage or a Federal Reserve note, which is a promissory note that states that the federal corporation called the United States owes the Federal Reserve X amount of money at some future point. It's an evidence of a debt. Or bills that you get in the mail from your utility company or your phone company or whoever. Those are all negotiable instruments. And when you learn how their function is, and when you learn how they're transferred, and you learn how they're created, and you learn how they are released, which is actually pretty simple, you realize that you can actually convert any of those negotiable instruments at any point in time, even the bills that are mailed to you for your utilities or your phone bills. Those can all be converted into cash value. And we live in a world where we don't have money. If you look at Uniform Commercial Code Article 3, Section 102, it says specifically that UCC Article 3 is only about negotiable instruments and does not include money. They're very clear that negotiable instruments and money are two very different things.
Right. Money would be...
If you look at the definition of money in Black's Law Dictionary, it specifically says that things like notes and real estate and these kind of things are not included in the definition of money. But when you look up the definition of currency or funds, it specifically says in those definitions that it can include instruments and negotiable instruments. So when you're talking about negotiable instruments, you would say currency or funds. And if you're talking about gold and silver coins, you would say the word money.
Money.
Two entirely different systems.
Mm-hmm.
And what about what happens when we're born and we're sold into servitude?
Well, that's just a corporation that's made in your name in all capital letters, and then you identify as that corporation, and that's kind of, but it's not really a slavery system in its most intrinsic value. It's operated that way because we don't know the difference between ourselves and this other person, because the definition of the word person includes trusts and estates and partnerships and companies and corporations. So the thing is that you are actually two different persons. And the problem is you are identifying as one person. And it's actually very, very simple to simply operate as two different persons, and you are immediately no longer in the slave system. But obviously, you would have to go back and clean up all of the various contracts where you said that you and this other person were the same person, which you are not. And that's essentially where the contract killer course comes into play, is that you're going back and you're cleaning up your identity in relationship to your contractual agreements that you have previously gotten involved in. And that's very simple, I believe, once you kind of get the hang of it. I think it's pretty simple now. I've been so engrossed in it for a couple of years now, obsessed, beyond obsessed, for about 2.5 years. But I feel like I'm starting to explain it better and better and better, and I'm starting to get it more and more and more clear in my mind. And the clearer I can get it, the better I can explain it in a clear way. And every contract in the world is all voluntary, and if you want to change or adjust or update any contract at any point in time, then you can do so as many times as you want, whenever you want. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
And what about the value of us as people and how that's traded and so on and so forth?
So in 1933, the Gold Abrogation Act, the Emergency Banking Act, they removed all the gold and silver coins out of the circulation. So they eliminated our ability to pay using lawful money, and in exchange, they gave us the ability to defer payment of anything we want forever, to an unlimited degree, and that's called discharge or set off. And the definition of the term credit, if you look it up in the United States Code, it literally says to defer payment to a later date. That is the definition of the term credit, right?
Mm.
So credit, the term credit and the term discharge and the term set off pretty much all mean the same thing. It means to defer payment to a later date. So the way that all worked is that it removed gold and silver coins from being the backing of the money supply. And then in 1935, we have the Social Security Act. The Social Security system became the backing for the negotiable instruments that we use as currency or funds. So our future potential productivity via the Social Security system is what floats the value of the negotiable instruments that we use, essentially.
And so you say in your course throughout it, like, don't get upset, or because this stuff is going to upset you. Try to look at it from an angle of now you are empowered because you have the knowledge, and now you can do something about it. And so whenever you say these things, especially in the beginning, your first, as a matter of fact, your first, the first episode of your first course is really about that mindset, like staying in the mindset of not getting too upset as you hear this stuff, and just figuring it out and knowing what the information is so that you can take the next step.
Yeah, because Suzanne was mad when I started telling her about it. She's like, "What?
Of course she
Are you
was.
serious?"
Suzanne's ready to burn something to the ground. She's got
Exactly.
Molotovs. She's
so
building
aggressive.
Molotovs. Yeah.
Just a ball of anger over here.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, it happens. It happens. So, that's all part of the what I do and what I teach, because I don't, revenge is always going to end up in someone else wanting revenge for the revenge, and then now
Right.
you want
No one
revenge
wins.
for the revenge that they
Right.
revenge, and then it's just so
Right.
that's kind of what I want to do, is I want to educate people and help them understand that the system, when you understand how the system works and its current right now structure, it's actually very nice and very helpful. And there's very little of it that you're really going to have an issue with. Like, for example, if I could wave a magic wand and could change anything about anything with our system, is the only thing I would say is just the 14th Amendment was never properly ratified by 3/4 of the states, and Congress in 1967 says that. And they say that they actually even believe that at that time in 1967 that the 14th Amendment was actually used to usurp the entire American government and the entire American people. If you remove the 14th Amendment, which it already doesn't exist, you would simply acknowledge its non-existence since its supposed inception. It never has existed. The U.S. citizen moniker and U.S. citizen classification would instantaneously vanish. The Federal Reserve System would instantaneously vanish. The federal corporation would essentially instantaneously vanish. The IRS would vanish. The CIA would vanish. The FBI would vanish. And the list goes on and on and on, because it's all hinging on the 14th Amendment splitting of the two different citizenship categories. At that time in 1871, it was federal citizen and state citizen, which is what they talk about and what they figured out in the Supreme Court cases called the Slaughterhouse cases in 1871. They interpreted the 14th Amendment to be that when the slaves were set free at the end of the Civil War, the people in the states did not want the slaves to have the full rights of a state citizen. So it was this happy medium to allow the slaves to be removed out of involuntary servitude, but they didn't want them to give them the full rights of a real American. So they got something called civil rights, or basically what happened was they created this new citizenship category called the federal citizen, which essentially means a worker, an employee or officer of the government, essentially is what that classification means, right? And so at that time, there was the state citizen and there was the federal citizen. And then over the years, the federal citizen category became United States citizen. And the state citizen category became the word national. It's not even capitalized. It's just a lowercase n, ATIONAL. And that comes from 8 U.S.C. 1101, subsection A, 21 is the definition of the term national. And And
you are so good at like rattling off those numbers. Like, I just have to say, I know you do it a lot, but you do it in all your courses too. And so I'm kind of grasping every once in a while what you say. I'm like, okay, I remember this part. I remember this part. But then you start rattling numbers. I'm like, oh, I totally did not remember that was the number of it. Is this is this all part of just who you are, or is this doing it a whole lot, or both?
Doing it a whole lot. I mean, I know the definitions of all these things word for word, and I know almost every definition of every word inside the definition word for word. And I think I have almost all of it memorized at this point. So it's just kind of, a lot of it has to do with going on shows every day. I mean, I do this every day. It's kind of normal. It's like drinking coffee. You know what I mean? So
yeah, that is helpful.
It's good to know. I mean, what if I don't have access to materials or whatever? I don't know. I mean, the ultimate protection for anybody getting involved in law is that you know everything so well, you need no notes, and you can sway a jury, and you're really invincible at that point. Who needs diplomatic immunity when you can sway a jury with no notes? Oh my Lord, that doesn't get any better than that.
That's why we can't wait to see you in a courtroom.
Yeah,
I don't think when it happens, right?
Yeah, I don't know if a lot of my stuff's gonna even go that far, because the thing is that the only reason why there's a lot of activity in a courtroom is because there's something to talk about, there's something to debate. Right. A lot of my stuff, there's not a whole lot of debate needed. I mean, you go into my cases and they're saying that they didn't get served properly, and that I don't have a private right of action, or my client doesn't have a private right of action. It's just like goofy. Still, they're not even acknowledging the actual complaint itself. So I have a feeling they're just going to flail around like wounded animals, and then they're just going to give up and die. I don't think there's much of an in between there. Things don't really go into court unless there's actually something that they really want to fight for. With the way that my stuff is laid out, and with the amount of knowledge that I have, that they don't have a clue. They don't really stand a chance, and I think they recognize that. And that's why, if you look at a lot of the things that they're doing and the dismissals and all the goofiness that they're doing, it's very weak, and it's not even really hardly. There's only the only thing that ever really even addressed a lot of the concerns in the complaint at all was the motion to dismiss, the memorandum of the motion to dismiss. Besides that, almost nothing else. They don't even want to talk about the complaint. We had a meet and confer session where we talked over the phone, because in Minnesota, you actually literally have to have a meet and confer before you file a motion. So it's actually a local rule. We had to do it. They didn't want to talk about the complaint. They didn't want to talk about anything.
What do they talk about? They don't want to talk about the complaint.
They didn't want to talk to me, and they didn't want to talk about the complaint, and that was it. And we argued, went back and forth, and they said, Mr. Williams, you're practicing law illegally, and we're going to file a report. I said, great. Make sure you send me a copy of the report, because I want to send it to my email list. We're going to have a good laugh on that. And then she was like, Mr. Williams, you realize that this is a very serious situation, blah, blah. And I go, look, I'm not going to ask you again. Are you going to send me a copy of the report? Yes or no? Either way is fine. I just want to know, yes or no. Yes, I will, Mr. Williams. Thank you. End of the discussion. Let's move on to the next point. So that was, we didn't really go anywhere. Bar card lawyers love to threaten you. That's what they do the whole time. From the moment you file all the way, I mean, literally every single day, all they are saying to me is just threats. There's going to be a whole section of the pro se litigant course where we're going to make fun of this. And that's all they do. They talk about these things called sanctions, which is their favorite word in the whole world. And they're very sweet, and they write things in a very nice way, and they do, but everything they say, whether you can totally notice it or it's like very, very subtle, they're threatening you. And it's these vague, completely ridiculous, and if you even were to ask them any additional information, it wouldn't even make any sense. It's just these very, very vague, throwing shit at the wall and see what sticks, trying to like rattle you or rattle your composure threats. That's literally all it is. It's just bark, 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 bark. That's all they do. And they say all this goofy stuff, and they try to get things thrown out because they say that they weren't served properly. And just like, it's just goof. It's just straight goofball. And the thing is that, people are very intimidated by the court system and very intimidated by bar card attorneys. And, my whole purpose and the pro se litigant course is going to be designed to completely handle and address all of those fears and get you to realize that it's a joke. It's literally a joke.
I look forward to that course. I'm probably going to have to take it 5 or 6 times to get it to stick, but I absolutely look forward to it. It's powerful. I mean, there's nothing better than taking your power back and having the confidence to walk around like a real human being and not be subject to everything around you.
Yeah.
Which is what it feels like. So, well, we are, we're 2 hours in.
Yeah. And you said you start getting kind of like after 2 hours.
Well, 2 hours is usually just a good time to end off. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just a lot for the audience too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you so much, especially for our little YouTube channel to come in here and spend your time with us.
Because you're Adrian or Adriana, whatever her name is, Rose, or not whatever her name is, however I'm pronouncing that. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. She said it really well. She was like, here you go. You're blowing up. Thanks for coming on here and seeing us before you go. And we hope to see you again, you know. Like,
we'll try to blow up with you. That way we can have you back on later for sure.
No, I
don't. There you go. I don't. Joey. High five, Joey. I love it.
Yeah, I don't plan on. I mean, I kind of like going on the smaller shows too, because it's you know, there's always. If I didn't go on all the smaller shows, I wouldn't be so prepared to go on the larger shows. And honestly, you asked me, how do I know all this stuff by heart, and how can I rattle all this stuff off by heart? It's probably going on these shows, honestly.
Yeah.
So the thing is that,
teach one.
Yeah. So the shows are an important part of. See, when someone DMs me some stupid shit that pisses me off, if I respond to that stupidity, that one person, maybe, probably not, is the only person who's going to understand anything or get anything out of that transaction. When you go on a show, X amount of people see it, and then X amount of people will continue to see it after it's published for the duration of however long it's published. I would much rather be spending my time on a show than in DMs making me want to lay down on busy train tracks. So the thing is that, you know, so the DMs, I almost never answer anybody, and I hate it, and I can't stand it. And I just doubled my hourly rate. It went from $1,000 to $2,000 an hour. And even now, I still don't want your money. I still don't want to work for you. I still don't want you to pay me. I still don't want you to DM me. It's just kind of, you know, you can call it the Pena model, but I just love the model, period. I mean, even if it wasn't Pena, even if I just heard about it, I'd be using it. Super low stress, super nice model. Highly recommend the model to anyone who is looking for a different type of business model, who wants to pull out their hair or hang themselves. It's a very, very low stress model, extremely low stress model. And the cool thing about giving away almost everything for free is you have absolutely no obligation to anyone.
Right.
And you can just send people pictures of your penis or your middle finger whenever you want. And there's absolutely nothing they can do
as
about it.
As long as they can tell the difference.
And there's absolutely nothing they can do about it. And they know that, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful model. And I'm very happy to have this model for what I'm doing. So yeah.
Well, we're happy to have you. We feel very blessed to have found you.
Yes.
And to be, you know, following what you're doing and what you're putting together. We thank you so much for all the value you put out. We thank you so much for coming here and showing a few more people, you know, what you do and who you are. And all I can say is, guys, this ought to give you enough to go take the free course. I mean, it's fucking free. Why don't you take it? Just go take it. I mean,
he does it just to help. He truly does it just to help. And there's so much good energy that goes with this, and educating yourself at the same time. It's like 100% win. And then it's really cool to see it on the back end, like how the business model that you've used. We've actually Joey and I have talked about this before and shared it with some people, and we are. I think it's a great model. I think it's a great model, and we just thank you so much for coming on here. I can't really just reiterate what Joey said. Thank you. We appreciate it.
And we're in your corner. We're cheering for you all along the way. We look forward to everything you're doing. Seeing you, you know, battle it up in court if it ever makes it there, and if not, we look forward to seeing the results and laughing at it with you.
Well, we got a lot of action. We got a lot of action in our cases, case 1 and case 2. It's all just documents.
Yeah.
So if you want to see that, you got to go on Pacer and create a free account, and you have to pay 10 cents per page. And then at some point, we'll probably figure out a different system where we have like a shareable section where anybody can come in and just I just don't want to be the one to download all that and upload it and share it all. It's just like,
you're gonna have to put pickle pictures on every page just to make it not boring. Yeah.
Exactly. So for right now, it's good. It's good that people learn how to use Pacer anyways, because when you run all your own cases, you're going to be using Pacer. So it's good to just learn it now and get used to it anyways.
Yeah.
Plus, for anyone who's been around for more than 30 years on this planet, Pacer is going to make you, it's going to bring back a lot of memories of your 56K dial-up modem and your, what was going on in the mid to late 90s. They're gonna be wearing Jenko jeans and driving a Ford Escort GT before you know it, or a Miata. Because I'll tell you right now, the website is.
Oh God, is it dial up like that noise that used to be on there?
It's gonna remind you.
You've got mail.
Everything about Pacer is gonna bring you back to 1996. Everything about Pacer.
That's awesome.
Long wait times. You have no idea why. Text-based pages that are just a bunch of I'm telling you, they should just have like little bouncy little stars that just kind of go across the screen. If they had that, I'm telling you, boom, we'd be in 1996. I'd be hearing dial-up modems in the back of my head and everything.
Right.
So,
that's what I mean. Yeah.
So Pacer is also a nice flashback to a simpler time, I guess you could say.
I miss the simpler times. Mine was the 80s. Yours was the 90s. Mine was the 80s.
Mine was the 90s. Yeah, mine was the 90s. So 90s stuff. Baby. I had a blast in the 90s. I absolutely loved the 90s. So I have no complaints.
I did too, man. Yeah. Top Gun. It was all there.
Yep.
Living it out. All right, buddy. Thank you so much.
Guys.
We'll be watching you on your shows. What's the next show you're going to be on?
Geez.
He's like, I gotta go look.
I have so many booked. I have so many things. A lot of the ones I'll be doing in Austin are all in person. I don't know how long it's going to be to turn those around.
Have a blast there, man. That's an awesome town, or it used to be. I'm sure it still is.
I've never been to Texas in my life ever. So
just say y'all a lot, like Suzanne does.
Y'all.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, y'all.
Everybody makes fun of me, but I do say that. It's in a really pretty part of Texas. You're in the hill country, and then you're going to go to Bandera. And Bandera is even more in the hill country. I mean, it's like literally, like we don't have mountains or anything, but we have real pretty hills, and it's pretty for Texas. So you're going to be in a really pretty area. And if you want to go run out there, it's a good run.
You might decide to move there like Joe Rogan and Elon Musk.
Yeah, everybody moves out there. So you may be next.
Everybody's out there. I know. Well, they're all running away from things I don't need to deal with. So we'll see.
I was just about to say, they're going to say there's no state income tax. And you're like, whatever.
It makes no difference to me. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'm in California and I pay less than the guys in Texas do. So whatever, you know what I mean?
Hey, I tell you what, I loved California when I was out there before. It was
I
was in the military out there.
I always tell everybody the same thing. I'm like, if you could be here, you didn't need to deal with smog. You didn't need to deal with registration. You didn't need to deal with titling. You didn't need to deal with income tax, state tax, city tax, or sales tax. Would you, and you didn't need to deal with all the bureaucracy of running a business out here either.
Right.
Would you come back to California? And it's usually, it's sometimes a yes. It depends. A lot of people have a lot of emotional, political mentalities towards California, but California's got everything here. It's not just one thing or the next. It's the fifth largest economy on the planet if it broke off and became its own country. So it's a whole country. California is basically an entire country, essentially. And it's a very, very diverse country. And if you go outside of the literal, for whatever reason, it's blue all the way up along the water, all the way across the coast, it's blue. And then you have blue in San Francisco, blue in Sacramento, and it's blue in Los Angeles. But if you go anywhere else, including San Diego, it's just the whole thing's red. All the desert towns, you go east, you go inland, everything.
For sure, Bakersfield, because that's just the Oklahoma of California.
Yeah. No, seriously. So the thing is,
literally
this idea that California is this gigantic liberal cesspool. I think politically that might be true. All the crazy people in politics come out of California. That is pretty much a fact.
That's true. Yeah.
Besides that, I mean, the reason why all the crazy psycho politicians are here is because you have the fifth largest economy on the planet, and they get 30-40% of everything that it makes.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's the amount of political graft that's available in California is more than any place on the planet times a billion, literally.
That's crazy.
Because if you have 1% of even like, I don't know, South Dakota is a lot of money. But then you have 30% of California, and that's just like unbelievable.
That's Pelosi money.
That's a lot of greed.
You couldn't even hope to spend any of that. I mean, that's just like, so that's why there's so much of that here. It's so prevalent because it's accepted here. That's really the issue. People accept the craziness of that, and whatever. It's
a beautiful place with
it's
great
a beautiful state. Gosh, it's so pretty. Yes.
Yeah.
Y'all
I do miss the weather.
Red oaks and the sequoias
Don't get me wrong, I love it here. This is a beautiful place to be. Northwest Florida, the Panhandle, the water. We got the Redneck Riviera here, except in Memorial Day, and then it's the gay beach or whatever's going on there, where everybody walks around in banana hammocks for a whole weekend. But the humidity here in July and August is just too much. I want to go elsewhere at that time of year. It used to not bother me as much, but now I'm like, I could go to Colorado during July and August. But man, if you get down here, for sure, let us know. We'll hook up and hang out.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate it, Brandon. Thank you. Have fun in Austin.
Thank you.
We'll see you later. Bye-bye.